Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Krant, a longtime Litquake volunteer. On behalf of Litquake, thank you all so much for coming to Lit Crawl San Francisco from wherever you are on our globe. Today, tonight, tomorrow, it's the closing session of Litquake, San Francisco's literary festival. And we're in the midst of a virtual lit crawl, which is running 10:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. San Francisco time, with 25 events and featuring 7 cities around the world. This nonprofit festival is nearly 100% free, and it could not exist without the generosity of our individual donors. If you believe in keeping literature a key component of San Francisco's cultural landscape, please consider dropping us a few dollars. Every bit helps. We accept donations on Venmo at Litquake, on PayPal at info@litquake.org, or directly at our website, litquake.org. After the event, you'll be asked to fill out a short survey. These surveys are also very essential to our efforts to keep the Lit Crawl free. Now, let's get started with our event, and here is the group from Wellington, New Zealand's Lit Crawl.
Kia ora, are we on? Kia ora tātou, no mai, haere mai to Wellington, New Zealand, where we're in Vic Books bookshop. Vic Books are a partner of Wellington Lit Crawl and a Verb Festival. We've been going since 2014, and our 7th Lit Crawl is happening in just a couple of weeks, and we're so happy to be here joining this Lit Crawl movement globally. So thank you so much to San Francisco. Today we have 10 writers from Aotearoa, New Zealand, who have all been in Lit Crawl since we started, way back when. So we're just going to get straight into it so that I don't take up all the time. So number 1 writer, Mary Jane Duffy. She's an art writer, a poet, and a wannabe cartoonist. She manages programs at Te Awaha School of Creativity. She lives with her husband and cat amongst the wind and the clouds of Newlands. Welcome, Mary Jane.
Thanks so much. How exciting to be here. What an exciting event. This is a poem about a New Zealand artist that I wrote after reviewing her show. Marie Shannon is a photographer. The Hallways of Love, after Marie Shannon. I think about books I'll write and books I won't write. I think about poems. I think about dogs I'll own, little to medium-sized, odd-shaped dogs with underbites, and other dogs. I think about cats I'll live with, and there aren't any cats I won't live with. I think about houses I'll live in with lots of windows and views to the stars, and bedrooms with opening doors, and beds that are so sad to get out of. I think about lights I'll stop at and lights I won't stop at, disco balls and such. I think about sneakers I'll buy, high tops, maybe pink ones with glow green laces. I think about artists I want to meet, Louise Bourgeois, I know she's dead, but still, and Shirin Nishat. I hope I'll like them. I think about horses I'll be introduced to. I don't have to ride them, I just want to know them well enough to stroke their velvety noses every day and comb their manes, of course, and maybe brush them down with one of those horse brushes if they want that. I think about rock pools I've looked into and how I need to look into a rock pool at least once a year and think about the colour of the limpets and the rush shades of the seaweed and the rocks I can lift up to see the tiny crabs run away. I think about the knitting needles in my wardrobe and the gloves I'm not knitting. It's hard to knit when you're happy. Knitting is something I do when sadness overtakes me and I need to calm myself or watch a lot of TV. I think about dragon fruit I'll eat and mangoes and going to the dentist next Friday and how my teeth are complaining but not communicating their complaints that well. I think about kimonos I want to wear and silk dresses with sashes and world t-shirts with sparkly strawberries. I don't care if they weren't Fabrique en Nouvelle-Zélande. Denise Lestrange Corbet bought those stripes and those sparkles together here. I think about songs I'll sing at karaoke and songs I'll sing with my ukulele and songs I want to learn on my guitar, songs like Amy Winehouse's Valerie and the Mavericks Dance the Night Away. I think about how the stars cluster together to impress us and how the moon is just impressive and how Marie and Julian loved each other and the clouds that live next door, such noisy clouds, always playing loud metal music and drinking too much. And then noise control comes over and shuts them down, and the rest of us can finally go to sleep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane. So number 2 writer is Helen Rickerby. She's the author of 4 collections of poetry, most recently How to Live, published by Auckland University Press in 2019, and it won the poetry collection in the 2020 Ockham New Zealand Book Awards, which was amazing. She lives in a clifftop tower in Aro Valley and is happy to have rediscovered dancing. Welcome, Helen.
Kia ora, everybody. This is very exciting. It has been a nuts year. I mean, it continues to be a nuts year. And I wrote this poem several years ago about something completely different, but I've found it quite helpful this year. Although my book is called How to Live, it actually doesn't have very much useful information about how to live, but it does have a little bit of advice. Well, this poem is an exception. It does have some advice that I've at least found quite useful, and it's called How to Live Through This. We will make sure we get a good night's sleep. We will eat a decent breakfast, probably involving eggs and bacon. We will make sure we drink enough water. We will go for a walk, preferably in the sunshine. We will gently inhale lungs full of air. We will try to not gulp in the lungs full of air. We will go to the sea. We will watch the waves. We will phone our mothers. We will phone our fathers. We will phone our friends. We will sit on the couch with our friends. We will hold hands with our friends while sitting on the couch. We will cry on the couch with our friends. We will watch movies without tension, comedies or concert movies, on the couch with our friends while holding hands and crying. We will think about running away and hiding. We will think about fighting, both metaphorically and actually. We will consider bricks. We will buy a sturdy padlock. We will lock the gate with the sturdy padlock, even though the gate isn't really high enough. We will lock our doors. We will screen our calls. We will unlist our phone numbers. We will wait. We will make appointments with our doctors. We will make sure to eat our vegetables. We will read comforting books before bedtime. We will make sure our sheets are clean. We will make sure our room is aired. We will make plans. We will talk around it and talk through it and talk it out. We will try to be grateful. We will be grateful. We will make sure we get a good night's sleep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. Up next is Arihia Latham. She's a Kaitahu Māori writer, a traditional Rongoa Māori health practitioner, a facilitator and a mama in Wellington, Aotearoa. Her work has been published by Huia, Landfall, Oronui, Food Court, Te Whē, Awa Wahine, The Spin-Off and Pantograph Punch. She's presented at Verb Festival, New Zealand Festival of the Arts and Te Ha. Welcome, Arihia.
Tēnā tātou katoa, he mihi nui kia koutou. This is a real honour to be here. Thank you very much for having me. This poem is called All the Fucks of a Water Bird. I look around the plain with a song about colours folding warmth into my ears, and all the people are glowing with their hearts chattering in the high altitude reality we have chosen together. Putting faith in flying reminds me of holding a tiny newborn, the fragility, the perfection, the terror, the unbelievably deep well of heat in my chest, expanding to my fingertips. I watch the couples do couple things, and the people alone zone in and out, and the families nervously juggling. I fall in love with them all, in their imperfections and lost dreams, and this realization surprises me in my stressed out head. It's COVID time and we're all in masks. I can't even see their mouths, and maybe that's why our eyes are catching and leaking. And maybe we could die up in this tin arrow, because down there is no party either. Up here, I care more. Up here, my cares become nothing. It's like giving zero, but all the fucks. My skin is the clouds, my breath, the wind, my chest still holding the sun. I give 0, but I give 100. Can you feel it? I start to cast us all as birds. We've become a feathered V formation, just the same close up. But this distance shows down below that we have shit worked out. Look at the shape we can fly in when you thought we were just a viable dinner possibility. How is it that we take ourselves so seriously when we are in the centre and the edge, the beginning and the end, the joke and the punchline, the breath in and the breath out, the first kiss and the last goodbye, the fire and the ashes, the rain and the river, or every grey shudder of mist in between, nothingness, moments of silence, of spit, of staring and unknowing. I wonder if we are just like the water cycle, recycling our love for each other, Rangi Nui and Papa Tuanuku transmuting their love and loss through us, and we just keep transforming it, punching it into places, pissing it, absorbing it, crying it, drinking it, swimming in it, floating in the current of it, drowning in it, evaporating into the expanse, hovering in the culmination of it, waiting for another chance. Tēnā koutou.
Thank you so much. Next up, Emma Barnes, mostly into poetry and powerlifting. They have 2 books coming out in 2021, a book of their own work and an anthology co-edited with Chris Tease of LGBTQIA+ and Takatapui writing from Aotearoa. Please welcome Emma.
Kia ora everyone, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I've got 2 little short poems for you. First one is I Am a Man. Here she is, they say of my body. I lifted my breasts into my clothing this morning. I say, I'm a man for all weathers. I'm a man for all withers. You said the horse is loose. I, capital I, start these sentences in my head on the night I have an existential crisis about my gender. I'm a man because I think I am a man. I'm in this body of hips and that wet cave between my legs. You say your father is a woman and I say that she makes sense. I'm a woman, but no one takes these breasts seriously. There's only so far I can get in this. Men want me to be a woman. You want me to be a woman. I am the praying mantis, destroyer of worlds, and you cannot explain why you want to be devoured. Acting out woman in this woman shape is standing on the ground while people fly around me. I'm a bird of cheeping and plumage. No one said a word about flying. Is this a telescope of longing? Am I upside down and my brain transforms the image? It's all in the bricks. It's me, the plasterer, the decorator, the twin of my twin. I'm the grand misogynist behind the curtain. My cunt a billow of satin lining. Or I'm just kidding myself sweetly. Where to now with this wilting self I've kept in a jar? See me as a woman-man shape. See me as I backflip into myself. See me as I disappear when I can't hold the ideas inside me. Daily, I am a woman climbing default. And this next one is a little desert love poem called Completely Dry Riverbed. In the desert, the sand is red and soft, and it takes the skin off your feet. You open up your bed like a sandwich and crawl under the lettuce and lie near a fire that burns down into the sand. The sky above is blank with stars. You wake into it as waves and run your fingers through them, but sleep claws you back until you come up again, thinking of dingoes drinking out of cups of water beside heads. That was a story that happened to a head near yours now when it wasn't near your head, but it was still asleep in a swag. The dingoes, they always want something. That night it was water. Sometimes they take each of your belongings to a safe radius to examine, only to be disappointed with every sock and every shoe. A ring around a camp of all your lost belongings, 30 feet out. In the dry riverbed, the dogs chase after everything with a keen sense of righteousness, anticipating perhaps Terry, a dingo that fell in love with a dog. But who knows the minds of dogs, let alone dingoes, and love cannot be explained in any case. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. So next up we have Chris Tease, who has published 2 poetry collections with Auckland University Press, How to be Dead in a Year of Snakes and He's So Mask. And Chris is the co-editor of the forthcoming volume of Queer New Zealand Writers that Emma is co-editing with Chris. So please welcome Chris.
Thank you, Claire. Kia ora to everyone watching online. This is a poem called Karaoke for the End of the World. Racists don't ask about the weather while they abuse you for moving cars. And although I wish to lead by example, killing them with kindness can only get us so far. There's a temptation to chase each car and ask, how's your mother? How's your job? Have you read any good tweets lately? Small talk won't make a difference to the gleam of the guillotine blade that believes it has no choice but to fall edge first into every soft neck. In these moments, I think, show backbone, but I forget the words, and my ultimate flinch is to bury myself where they can't find me. Why am I embarrassed about my anger while others wield theirs so freely? But even with my tongue torn from my mouth, I can still sing the saddest song, the furious song. You too can follow along with the words as they glow radioactive. It goes a little something like, the earth yawning and unhinging its jaw, or the sky relinquishing its guardian status, leaving you naked on the stage with only a microphone stand to hide behind. We would all benefit from a surprise key change in the middle of every traumatic experience. Dystopia cannot name the alternative in the way a dog without its bark can improvise its defenses through every warning. This is a small thing that means everything. There might be a lesson in being called a chink in broad daylight. It has something to do with what's familiar that has gone missing. But it's the punchline in the disconnect that sticks with you. Like performing a song about dancing with your father set to a montage of dung beetles rolling balls of shit, or a song about bling and popping champagne while doomed lovers stroll through the rain without an umbrella in scenes from a Korean soap opera. I have reduced myself to playing the part of empty orchestra far too many times to know what sort of reception I'll receive. Hard hands on a slack body, and the crowd filming every grope on their phones as I tip my head back and release the most primal sound I can summon, a reach so pained it can be understood by all creatures. A pardon with no consequence, an apology with no sigh of relief. I look them all in the eyes, and the lyrics flicker in front of me. Help me, I'm dying here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And next is Chris Price, who is the author of 3 poetry collections and a weird mixed genre volume, Brief Lives. She teaches creative writing at Victoria University and has spent this year on leave working on a long-running project about the romantic poet Thomas Lovell Beddoes. I think I've said that right. Please welcome Chris.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Claire, for bringing us all together here. It's nice to be together. The poem I'm going to read is from a book called Beside Herself, which was published in 2016. And in a year when we have all, I think, found ourselves beside ourselves, perhaps a little more frequently than we would like, this seemed the poem that was most relevant to the moment. It's called Hasta la Vista. Things were fatal, but not urgent. We used more makeup and less speed. We saw the hectic colour on one side and the blank space on the other. What went up came down, then drilled its way meters deep in the earth. Under the turned table, we learned how to live on our own chewing gum, while unfamiliar implements played dinner music above our heads. We adapted. It was what we knew how to do. But the sugar cubes kept getting smaller. Whereas before we had been known by name, now we only crept to the watering holes under cover of darkness, then sat with chins on our knees and waited while the new customers declined our terms in favour of their own impenetrable argot. Sign met size and came off second best, bedding down with lice and livestock in the basement of the air we used to own.
While they were busy ransacking the drawers, there was still time to rue our civilized discontents. But now the sudden silence impends overthrow. We stare at one another, suspended in the pause before the shouting and splintering Hollywood has, as it turns out, so well prepared us for. The breathless interval before our new lives, hat and coatless in the snow. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And next we have Rajoshi Chakraborty, who was born in India and now lives here with us in Wellington. He's the author of 6 novels and a collection of short fiction. Please welcome Rajoshi.
Kia ora koutou. I'm going to read 2 poems and written 2 years apart. And what they have in common is that they both involve a narrator walking with his daughter. And in both poems, there's a line where he, almost involuntarily, reminds her to look both ways while crossing the road. The first one, Over to You, Darling, was written just after the March for Our Lives movement against gun violence in the States in March 2018. Over to you, darling. So we are at the corner, a block from the courthouse, and I'm reminding my kid that the jury will be evenly split and it'll come down to her vote. But she should feel no pressure from any of the grown-ups, even though I or her mother can't be in the room. Vote as you think right, and to hell with everyone else. Let no one scare you. Remember, you'll have to live with the consequences of this verdict far, far longer than any of them, or even your parents for that matter. As she nods gravely, and I give her a goodbye hug, reminding her to look both ways when crossing the street up ahead, and also where I'm meeting her after, I can't help feeling, how did it come to this? Why the fuck will that jury be split? The second one is from this year and is called A Walk with My Daughter. I'm on a long walk with Leela. We've come through a wood, which took a while. Before that, a valley. Afterwards, a field. Then another and another. But it's fine because we have so much to talk about. And the day is perfect. I'm almost sad to see a road up ahead. Makes it feel like the end of something. As we get closer, I notice a stranger facing us. But Leela seems to know her. Judging from their reactions, they were expecting to meet here and look happy to see each other. Now Leela's hugging me and saying bye, even though I was expecting something quite different, to return home together. Does your mother know her? I call out, but Leela hasn't heard. Then I notice more strangers standing at strange intervals in the field on the other side, towards whom Leela and her friend begin to run. Look both ways, I yell from force of habit. Who are these people? Where's she off to? I need to ask Sasha. How could they have planned to meet if we only ended up here by chance? But now they all gather, hugging and high-fiving as though long apart, and then head off to my right, where I notice a highway crossing the quiet road between us. Something else I hadn't seen before. When my reverie breaks, the young people are gone. Astonished, I walk over to check. Other friends must have picked them up, or a car was waiting. I'm about to turn around. I'll message Leela later. When suddenly, this crossing starts to look very familiar. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you, Raj. Up next is Pip Adam, who is an award-winning writer in Whanganui Atara, who loves the verb. Her latest book is the novel Nothing to See. Please welcome Pip.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a minute of my time to say thanks heaps to Claire and Andy and everyone who's been involved with Lit Crawl in Wellington, because it's freaking awesome. There we go. Right. So here's my reading. They would play Roller Coaster Tycoon for hours. The tiny people would come in and the park, and they would pay the entry fee. They could go on the paths Greta and Peggy had built and ride the Ferris wheels and the merry-go-rounds. Always build the slow games first. And while they were riding, Greta and Peggy would build a go-kart track and start theming the areas, adding shops where the people could buy food and balloons. They always built an information centre and gave away the maps. It was best if people knew where they were going. Then, when the people were taken care of, busy, and there were employees to sweep and a mechanic to maintain the Ferris wheel and the merry-go-round and the go-karts, and they were pretty sure no one would die on any of the rides, they would build a path and a gate, but close it and start on a new roller coaster. They would check in with random people that walked around their existing parks, seeing what they wanted. If they wanted anything, Peggy and Greta would try and keep them happy. They would sometimes close a roller coaster and add a water feature to it. They played for hours. Outside, the sun moved across the sky. The light moved away from Peggy and Greta as it sank behind the hill until there was no sun. And eventually, they'd get hungry and would stop. They closed the park for the night. They watched the screen go black, and they sat for a moment and sighed and looked at their flat. And for a moment, the small, scurrying people would walk back and forth on the walls and any light space they looked at. The people moved by themselves, but deep inside them was a destiny made up of code. And this was what Greta and Peggy loved the best. The way the people looked like they could go anywhere, like they could be anything they wanted to be, but really, they were just lines of assembly under a thin layer of sea. The people had different names, but they all looked the same.
Thank you, Pip. Simon Sweetman. He's a podcast host, a journalist, and a poet. He blogs every day at offthetracks.co.nz. When he's not doing that, he reads books, watches horror movies, walks the dog, and photographs road cones, but not all at once. He has a brand new book of poems available called The Death of Music Journalism. Please welcome Simon.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to read you two poems that arrived a little bit too late for the book and are eagerly awaiting a second volume. The first one is a love song to my wife. It's called Week 12. There was blood on the floor and there was a call, and I ran out from work after explaining the rush and home quickly to get the keys, and then driving through Sunday traffic to the hospital. I remember saying to myself alone in the car, I'm coming, I'm on my way, I'll be there soon. And my heart was in my mouth as I was desperate to find a park. I could taste the blood. When I finally found the room, you looked like you'd run a marathon, and you were so beautiful to me. I could never ever know what you'd been through, but I try to know. In my worst moments, when I realise I've been a bit of a dick, I think back to that day and how I hoped I was there as quickly as could be, and how I've wanted to be there ever since, and for a long time before that, of course. And we lost something that day, together, absolutely. But I hope we also gained quite a lot. And the second one is called Cognitive Dissonance. The podcast is telling you about how the internet has rewired our brains. We no longer think the way we used to, and there's good and bad of that, and that, of course, you add, since no one asked. You're walking down the hill, and so since the walk home is a lot easier, the information is going in quicker, and you have time to scroll on your phone, catch up on your socials. You've been told it's actually antisocial, and this is perfect since it's just you and the dog, and the dog's idea of a really good post is one to piss on, and hey, maybe you aren't that different after all. But anyway, you are hearing all this talk about how humanity's hell is being handed to it, and deservedly. The handbasket is big tech sponsored. The revolution took place after a 2-litre of Mountain Dew was finished at 3 a.m. The coders won. They had no moral drivers, only function that was fitted to form and then became the norm. The ethics were outside of this reinvented wheel, hovering in search of a new Venn diagram. But then you see a cry for help. A person saying that they have no money and no way of working out what to do. Their kid has a birthday, they can't throw a party, they can't catch a break, They are well past breaking point. Set and match will be called very soon, you have to assume, and you scroll through strangers offering to lend a hand, requests for the bank account so they can help, and then more comments praising those who are answering this call. There is good in the world, there is hope, there is something really special. And though the noise is deafening and it can feel impossible to tear a tiny corner, let alone cut right through, you have to carry on reading, absorbing, learning. You have to try your best to care. You have to be on the lookout for the beacons, little parcels of hope. You can see them. People are offering them. You could offer one too. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Simon. And just before I introduce our very last speaker, I'd just like to say thank you to Litquake for doing this epic global experience. It has been a crazy year, and to have this kind of connection is really special. And also, if anyone wants to explore more New Zealand writers, do just get in touch. We're very happy to send you links and recommendations. So our final writer is Rajula Daus. Her debut novel, A Death in Shonagachi, is going to be published in 2021 by Picador in India. She's an award-winning short story writer and translator, and she received her PhD in creative writing and prose fiction in 2017 from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, where she taught writing for 2 years. Please welcome Rajula.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Litquake and Litcrawl. Right, this is a little bit from a short story I've been sort of chiseling away at. It's called Transmissions. I'm worried about Mike. I tell Marie this one time. She suggests we take him out, not to some nightclub where he can see men in metallic mankinis like any sane person, but to the goddamn morning market. 9 a.m. at the waterfront, she says with an open and entirely healthy face, like I know what that looks like. I don't want to look like the fuck up. For once, I want Mike to be the fuck up and I, the concerned, mentally fit friend, anxious to nurse him back into the world of the living. You would know that kind of hypocrisy. You'd smell it a mile off. I put 3 alarms spaced into neat 30-minute chunks, but I'm awake and sweating and checking fucking Facebook before 4 a.m. because you've invaded me once more and I don't need to be fucking following you on social media anymore because fucking Lord, haven't I had enough, but also 71,000 following you on Twitter alone, and I doubt you'll notice me creeping around your virtual presence. Mike comes like a pestilence, hair all over the place, but that might have been the wind because the fucking wind in Wellington, you remember? It blew my fucking long hair all over the place, and when I wore lipstick, stuck to my lips and looked like I was sucking on them. Cut it off, he'd said. Girls don't like me, Marie says, sucking on a popsicle the color of January cherries. Of course they do, I tell her. Mike says nothing, looks desolately at mustard greens, chard, spinach, and juvenile carrots like a man obsessed with green leafy things. I want him to buy something. Leave here with a non-plastic reusable bag sprouting green spiky things like those recalcitrant heads of spring onions that poke happy couples in the armpit when they walk back home hand in hand. Look, you could try that dish with the crispy chickpeas served on a bed of polenta with braised chard that you were telling me about, I tell Mike. His face falls, and I remember that the guy whose name I could never pronounce was gluten-free and vegan. Mike probably needs a good old-fashioned steak recipe. I should take him to the meat market instead. I feel like laughing, but then I know it's as silly as everything Marie would laugh at. Now, this is the interlude, a dream that was set in Hawke's Bay originally. I could see her texts popping on your phone, your giant phone screen lighting up with non sequiturs like, are you at least enjoying yourself, Peanut? We were high, like kites in the Wellington wind, like kites mangled and unmoored and all tangled up in each other and completely untrusting like the fake hawk, bashing against the wind outside your window, scaring off all the other birds. I had this desire to possess you, the absolute foolhardy need for permanence and the shame of it, the necessary omission of that truth. We were playing my songs, old and sentimental things like Adele that I would not have brought out so unguardedly in careful sobriety. I wanted to ask you about the future. I wanted to ask you if you would ever leave her for me, or if you would exist outside of that bed that night. So I said to you the only thing of permanence that I could think of, that the algorithms in your very expensive phone would pick me up for a while. For a while after I was gone, it would crumb your suggestions with songs in another language and cooking channels you'd never have encountered. For a while, I will inhabit you. Come on, you said. You know that already, you said. Who the fuck calls people peanut? I thought. Thank you.
So much. Thank you, Litquake. Hello to the rest of the world. We love you from New Zealand. And thank you to all of our writers here today. Have a lovely time for the rest of the program.